Hi, everybody. I'm so excited that you're here, and I am excited to tell you, please make this interactive. I used to be a professor, and there was nothing worse than just waiting for the slide to change and everybody taking notes when the slide changed, and just kind of dead eyes, if we're being honest, with students who are just waiting for the test. There's no test today. There's no test, just takeaways for your business. And I'm excited to be building on what Emily and Darlene shared. If you're here for those, if not, great, because you're going to get some new information that was already previewed by our amazing speakers earlier. So, how many of you have a retail business? You have a boutique, you have a business, you're thinking about starting one. How many of you are thinking about starting one? Okay, so we have a mix of people here, yeah? And then do you have an online presence? How many of you have an online boutique? Okay. Those of you who have online, do you have social media? Yeah? Okay. And then how many of you have brick and mortar, physical location? Awesome. And do you have any kind of online presence? Beautiful. Okay, so you have both. Is that right? Awesome. So what I want to talk to you about is how to make it look like you have a branding strategy that is elite, that attracts people to you, so you don't feel like you have to chase down your next customer. Does that sound good? Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to elevate your brand, and we're going to look at some great case studies and some not so great case studies, some mistakes that people have made and how you can avoid those in your own business. So first we're going to start with the very, very famous mark or logo, where you don't have to see the name of it to understand what it is, right? We all recognize this one, yes? Okay, now let's talk about one that is descriptive enough for you to understand because of the words that are on it. Build-A-Bear. Everybody familiar? Okay, if this was just a bear, would you understand what the store did, right? So we need both. Both together make sense. And obviously they knew that, and now we understand very, very simply what it's going to be like when we walk into that store, what the promise of the company is. Let's take a look at one that's not so clear. Okay, I know this is small, but it says Mimi's IV Hydration. Now, we all probably have an idea of what IV hydration is. Most of us probably do at this point. But I'm going to point out some things that could really be improved by Mimi here, all right? Is this font easy to read? It's not at all, right? And IV hydration, yes, this is pixelated up here, but IV hydration is really small, right? If I'm walking by, if I'm driving by, I have no idea what's going on, right? So your mark, your words are super important, and I see people make this mistake all the time. Especially, have you had your logo professionally designed? Anybody? Yeah, we're gonna look at some that make sense and don't make so much sense here in a minute. How old was your designer? Were they young? Any chance they were in their 20s? Okay, I'm in my 40s, nothing against people in their 20s, but I've worked with a lot of them. And a lot of times their eyes are so much better, and they're more focused on the aesthetic of the overall design than they are on its understandability, if that's a word. So when you think about your logo, I want you to think about how clear it is to somebody with the eyes of your, what I call cloneable client, which is your perfect customer like Darlene talked about, okay? Because it may not be readable, it may not be understandable, it may not be that thing that you can just trust is gonna be out there representing your company the way that you want it to be represented. Make sense? All right. So these are a few logos that I found to represent a plus size boutique. Now again, they're small on this screen, but if you look at the top two, I would argue, and even the name of the company, I would argue these don't make a whole lot of sense, right? When you look at them initially, do you have any clue what they're doing or for who, right? Now, I would argue this one is the best. okay? But it also doesn't tell me that it's a boutique. This one is super hard to read. Can you even see those words? Right? Again, we wanna design for different eyesight. We want it to be super, super clear. Now these two don't tell me anything about it potentially being a boutique, a clothing store, right? I have to guess. So again, I want you to run your logo through this, and we can take a look at some at the end, or we can take a look at some after the talk if you want to, and get feedback. This is a first impression, right? This is a first impression, and we want to make sure that it gets that gut level understanding for your person, like Emily was talking about earlier. All right, now we're gonna look at a case study. How many of you are familiar with what happened when Snoop Dogg put up this post on Instagram a few months ago? It says, now if you know anything about Snoop's brand, somebody tell me what he's known for. Yes, exactly. All right, so he put up this post on Instagram that got a lot of people really, really curious. It says, after much consideration and conversation with my family, I've decided to give up smoke. Please respect my privacy at this time. It was a very, very curiosity-inducing post, right? People think he's giving up the thing that he's most known for. Does anyone remember this? Yeah? Okay. What happened next? Somebody shout it out. Right. He's not giving up weed. What was he promoting? Anyone remember? Yes, the fire pit, the solo stove. Because it's a smokeless or smokeless stove, right? So here's a visual representation of what happened. Really bad for both brands, all right? Especially for the solo stove. There was such a mismatch of ideal customer on both sides. People lost jobs. It is, yeah, the solo stove. It's real trendy. It's been real trendy for the past couple of years. So somebody had this idea and thought it would be cute, right? And it went very, very badly. Those of you who remember this, do you remember? People were like, what the heck? This makes no sense. Everybody thought he was talking about weed. He was talking about this camp stove. The two did not match. They did not do enough research to figure out that this was going to be a huge, huge flop, right? Okay, so I share this because it happens with really big brands too. Darlene was talking about it at her former employer, right? They didn't do their market research at PacSun, and they wound up showing a huge loss, and the CEO lost their job over it. Now, I know we all have smaller businesses than this, or we're thinking about starting up, right? But we can learn from the mistakes of these huge brands who did a big deal, and it did not go as they'd hoped, obviously. Okay, does anyone remember the Lululemon scandal? Yeah, what happened there? Just shout it out. Anyone remember? They put out some leggings that didn't exactly match their high-end branding. They were what? See-through, right. And people were walking around having paid a premium for leggings that then showed off a little bit more that they wanted to show off in most cases, I'm assuming, right? So again, not a product market fit, huge disaster. They had to do a lot of triage to re-shore up their brand, right? And to get that luxury feeling back. This is me, and I wanted to give myself as an example too, okay? This is the before and after of my podcast. When I started my podcast, it was a passion project, and I have a background as a media, television producer, documentarian, and I love interviewing people. I've been doing it for over 20 years. I love interviewing people, and so I started this podcast called No One's Ever Asked Me That. And what happened was when people started asking me the name of my podcast, what did I say? No one's ever asked me that. And they were like, really? No one's ever asked you the name of your podcast? And I was like, no, it's called No One's Ever, oh, shoot. I made a big mistake, right? Now the tagline makes sense, but that's so long to read. right? It's so long to read. It went along with my brand and all of this stuff. When I decided that I was going to get strategic and turn it into a lead source for my business and align it all with my brand, I changed it to let's get visible entrepreneurs, get seen, get known, get clients. It's a lot clearer, right? Hopefully it is. And then when people ask me the name of my podcast, I don't answer them with something that really confuses them, right? It's all about getting visible, getting your branding out there, and becoming somebody who's known for a certain thing, which we're going to get into a little bit more. So I realize it took me a minute to introduce myself, but I'm Christine Amerman, and I've been doing this work for over 2 decades. I wrote a best-selling book, and I really, really love to help you dial in your marketing so that it attracts people, like I said at the beginning, so that it doesn't feel like you have to chase your next customers down. I want people to become loyal customers, to be repeat customers, to tell their friends about you, and to become brand ambassadors for what you're doing because they are excited to give you money because they believe in your brand. Sound good? Okay, awesome. Now, this is why we're talking about branding here, because like we said with the logo, often first impressions are everything. Not that you can't go back and build a strong relationship later on. There are lots of ways to do that, but we want to hit it correct from the start. What is the 80-20 rule? Who can explain the 80-20 rule? Just yell it out. Yeah, 80% of your business, of your revenue comes from 20% of your customers or your efforts, okay? 80% of your success comes from 20% that you're doing effectively, correctly, all of those things. So if you can dial in what the 20% is, right, then you can know exactly how you're going to grow and how you're going to scale and how we're going to build on what Darlene was talking about. So branding for more traffic to your store. How clear are you on these things? How clear are you on these things, and where are the opportunities for growth? How are people finding you? Do you know the exact traffic 80% of how people are finding you? Anybody? Anybody want to share? Like, what is the top lead generation for you?
Social media.
What is it?
Social media.
Okay, great. Which one?
Instagram.
Awesome. Perfect. I love that. Anybody else? Social media also.
TikTok.
TikToker. Brilliant. Awesome. So what I love is that you all know which platform, right? Because we often see people trying to be everywhere. And maybe you've tried that. I know I have. I know most of my clients have. And when that happens, you usually water down your message because it's not optimized for any one platform, right? So it's great that you know exactly where your people are finding you. And if you don't, what a great opportunity. What a great opportunity. Are enough people getting their eyes on your store? Knowing exactly where to show up, and then also exactly where it breaks down if you're not making enough sales. Super, super important. So maybe you have enough traffic, but maybe you aren't making enough conversions. Let's dial that in. And how does your brand stand out? What are you known for? Once you get the traffic, then how are you making the conversion? Darlene talked a lot about that, right? How are you making the conversion, and how are you giving people an experience that's congruent to your branding? There is a really fancy woman-owned plant store in this part of town that I live in. And every time you buy a plant, it doesn't matter if it's teeny, teeny, tiny 1 inch across or a huge one of these guys that we've got here, right? If it fits, they're gonna put it in a really pretty cardboard box that's branded with tissue paper. It's not super eco-friendly, but it's really pretty, right? It's really pretty, and you walk down the street and people know you've bought this beautiful plant and it's branded and it's awesome. So when you walk in and when you walk out, it feels the same, okay? The experience is the same. So how are you providing that? And how are you, when you're on TikTok, when you're on Instagram, when you're wherever you are, how are you providing an experience that when they come into your shop or when they hit your website, it feels the same as your social media or however else you're branding. Does that make sense? And then, are you bringing in the right people? On social media, it's really easy to get a bunch of followers. For example, how well are you converting them? Right? Are they just looking? Are they actually buying what you have to offer? And are you clear on however many followers you have, what percentage of people are buying? If you have an email list, if you're solely brick and mortar, how many people are walking in versus how many people are making a purchase? And is that in line with what you want? How can you improve the experience to get more sales? So branding impacts everything in your business. I hope you've seen that by this point. I'm going to give you the opportunity to download a brand audit at the end for free, right? Give you the chance to walk away with these things that we're talking about. And these are the times when you might want to do a brand audit. If your sales are low, if your traffic is low to however, whether it's foot traffic, whether it's your website, whether you're not getting the views and the conversions on social media that you want, maybe it's time to rebrand. I showed you all my podcast. It didn't really make sense to the right people, right? And we took a step back and we rebranded. If a brand identity isn't clear, because a brand identity is more than a logo, right? It's what you take a stand for. It's who you take a stand for. And it doesn't pass the heck yes test with your perfect people. Okay, we're going to talk about that in a moment as well. Here's how to do a brand audit. We call this the client attraction amplification system. We have 3 parts to it. Your clonable client. Do you know who your clonable client is? How is your positioning? Again, what Darlene talked about, right? And then does it pass the heck yes test? So let's talk about your clonable client first. Often people only stop at talking about demographics. What's a demographic? What's one example of a demographic? Maybe the first thing that comes to mind. Age. Yeah, exactly. So we have, I don't know, I'll use myself as an example, a range. Maybe it's 35 to 45, right? Maybe it's 35 to 45-year-old women. Well, how many different psychographics, how many different price points, how many different trends are included in that huge, huge demographic, right? Those are called psychographics. Psychographics have to do with someone's values. Why do they buy? Why do they buy what they buy? Why do they spend the money where they spend the money? What's important to them? These are the things that actually help you call out a person beyond maybe their physical location and their age. Does that make sense? Psychographics are super, super important. Most people totally skip this over. But when you think about, how many of you can think about your favorite customer or your favorite few customers that when you see an order come through from them or you see them walk through the doors, or imagine this if you're just starting your shop, you're like, oh, I'm so excited. You think about who those people are? Do you have a handful of them or even one? Raise your hand if you can think of one person that you just love, favorite customer. Okay, amazing. All right, here's the deal. Run your favorite client. I say it's the person you want to clone. Like you just wish all of your customers were this type of person. Run who they are through this audit. Take them and go, okay, not only what are their demographics, what are their psychographics? What do they love to buy? If you could clone them, you would, right? This is the person who helps you stay in business maybe, or the group of people who help you stay in business. Those are your people. And a lot of times they're you, maybe a little bit behind you, right? There's something that you have in common with them and that they love to buy from you because maybe your brand is aspirational for them. Maybe they connect to part of your story. How many of you share your story as to why you started your business? Why is it important? Why is it personally important to you? A lot of times people just focus on product assortment, right? They focus on having the best price. They have focus on display. And look, all of those things are important, but share your why. I think this is something we often don't do in a product-based business. And I know I love to give my money to companies who have a really important why that I can relate to, that I am proud to support, because I'm not shopping with them based on price. I'm shopping with them because I'm excited to put my dollars where my values are, right? And I think this is a huge opportunity in small business that we often miss out on. So I want you to be thinking about how could you better share your brand story and your why, again, going way beyond the logo, with the people that matter most to you. And also, Emily talked a lot about mindset. This is about cultivating a mindset that there are enough people out there like your clonable clients, right? That you can reach them, that you don't have to be scarce and believe that there are only a few people who are your clonable clients, and you might have to like sell to a lot of people you don't like, or sell to the people that Emily was talking about, which is like you see them walk in or you get an email from them and you're like, oh, well, I hope they buy something because this needs to be worth my time and energy, right? Instead, we want to serve the people that we got into business to serve. Okay, so those are your clonable clients. And again, I love to make this super, super tangible. So we're not going 35 to 45-year-old women. It's ephemeral. It's just out there somehow. I need to tie it down based on only their demographics. All right, perfect positioning. Darlene touched on this, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but in my world, positioning is logo. It's some of the things that we looked at earlier, right? It's how are you sharing your message? If you're sharing it on a website, if you're sharing it in your signage, how are you positioning yourself in the marketplace beyond just your logo and the name of your company? When you look at your logo, when you look at your tagline, when you look at the way you write captions, you write website copy, does it all match up with your brand story? Does it match up with why you do what you do? Does it represent the assortment that you have in your store? So often there is a mismatch between these things, right? And maybe it's because somebody else designed our website. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But maybe they had different values. Maybe you didn't understand your clonable client enough to be able to communicate that to them, right? And maybe there's a big opportunity in your marketing to make all of these things congruent. Because as small business owners, we wear all the hats, right? But if we can give ourselves permission to take a step back, even if it's just for a day or a half day, try to match some of these things up, we're gonna feel so much more congruent, and our customers will feel that as well. Does that make sense? Okay. And then third, what I call the heck yes test. Emily spoke about this morning. When somebody who is a clonable client for you walks into your store, sees your website, sees your social media, are they like, this is what I've been looking for. This feels right in my gut. You know, when they see your display, again, virtual or in person, are they like, this is what I've been looking for. I like not just one item, but I like the whole feel of this assortment. I like the whole feel of this brand. This is what I'm talking about with the heck yes test. And guess what? You can ask your clonable clients. In fact, I recommend that. If you say to them, look, I love you so much. I would love for every customer to be like you. Do you mind if I ask you 5 minutes worth of questions about maybe why you shop with me, about how you found me, about what's important to you in your life? What does your life look like, right? This is gold, because then you can be able to call that out in your social media content. You can call that out on your website. This is who it's for. You can call out who it's not for, which often is, so you want to be magnetic, right? You want to be magnetic to the right people, and you want to repel the wrong people, and this is how you get more customers that you love in your business. So don't just try to guess. Give them the opportunity to tell you as well, because that's flattering. If you're someone's favorite customer, wouldn't you love to tell them why, right? I would. So let's give our clonable clients the chance to do that. So in summary, know who your clonable client is, ask them. Think about how you're positioning yourself beyond your logo with your whole brand, your brand story, your why. And then step 3 is really, when you put those two together, Is it a heck yes for your clonable client? Is it quickly understandable for them, and can they self-identify, I love this store, I love what they're doing, I'm coming back? And my guess is some of you who are selling through social media, you have those people, right? Or my guess is that some of you who have a storefront that's been open for a while, you probably have these repeat customers who are like, I wonder what their assortment is for this season. I wonder what new stuff they've gotten in. They're always checking when you say you have new stock, right? These are your people to check with. Here's what you can expect when you go through this process, all right? More quickly establish that know, like, and trust factor, which is important when you're asking people for money, okay? When you are congruent throughout and there isn't a mismatch of product and positioning or brand story and price point, then you're more likely to immediately establish that know, like, and trust. And as you can see at the bottom, get people to come back again and again. Customer retention. How do you, these are your easiest people to sell to, right? Because the cost of a new customer is much, much higher than repeating, the cost of a new customer is much, much higher than bringing somebody back, okay? Also super easy to come out of the gate for those of you who are thinking about, you're thinking about launching or you're wanting to grow and scale wherever you are. You're gonna look so much more professional when you have this branding that's dialed in. If you're sending emails, how many of you send emails? Some of you? Okay, beautiful. So when you're sending emails can be kind of hard to get people to open, right? Does anybody feel that way when you scroll through all the emails that you've gotten? Oh, God, right? It's so overwhelming. But do you have a couple that you're excited to open because they give you a reason to? I feel like I have a couple. And I'm like, I wonder what their new product is. I wonder what, what's the word I'm looking for? I wonder what bundles they're putting together. I wonder what their new stock is. This is what you want to create because open rates for emails are abysmal, right? But if you give people a reason to open and they can expect what they're going to find out when they open it, they will. Again, that know, like, and trust. All right, and then also more people coming into the store, more people making a purchase when they do. Better conversions. Okay, here's a little QR code if you want to grab your free audit guide. It's going to ask you a couple of questions about how you found this presentation to be able to give feedback to the organizers, and also give you via email your free brand audit guide, which is going to walk you through in a little bit more detail what exactly you can ask yourself, you can ask your clonable client in order to improve the quality of your brand and ultimately give you more sales, which is what I want. I want you all to stay in business. I want you to come out of the gate strong. I want you to grow your sales, and I want you to be able to achieve and keep open your dream, right? We want to avoid that burnout that Emily talked about. We want to avoid the overwhelm or the nonprofit that Darlene talked about, where you don't pay yourself, but you run a business and get overwhelmed and get discouraged. Let's use branding to increase your sales and help you stay in business for the reason you got into it in the first place.